of earnings and education is huge for the Latino population. When you look at bachelor's degrees, comparing 2021 to 2010 in the ACS, there was a 50% increase among Hispanics in having a bachelor degree versus only 24% for the whole population. So more than 2 to 1. Latinos are getting educated, getting wealthier. I love this number. If you look at the annualized growth of high earners, and a high earner is defined as somebody in the 95th percentile. Okay, and this is important because so many of you may work in companies where it's hard to get attention for the Latino population. It's like, yeah, okay, I know there's a lot of people, but maybe they don't make as much money as some other people, right? Look at who's growing. Okay, the annualized growth of Latinos as being in the top 95% is about 4%. Total US is not quite 0.4. The non-Latino population is about 0.2. So do the math in your head, and that's about a 20-time increase of Latinos as high earners versus the total population. All right, so who should we be marketing to? Next. And this is something we came up with in one of the Nielsen reports that we do. And again, please go and look at those because there's a lot of valuable information there. But we call this years of effective buying power. And if you use CDC numbers, there's a lot of discussion during the pandemic about lifespans and what they did. But in general, Latinos live longer than non-Hispanic whites. Not quite as long as Asians, who live longer than anybody else. But we've already talked about the fact that you're much younger, right? So if we compound those two things, and if you have a product or a service, and you get the loyalty of a Latino to that product or service, how many years will that person keep buying that product? Well, for a Latino, it's 47. For a non-Hispanic white, it's 33. So you get 14 more years of effective buying power out of that Latino when they become loyal to your product. Very important. Next. All right, so we'll go back to some of these states and talk a little bit more about the demographics. So I've taken each one of those populations, talked about the 8 populations that have over 1 million people, and I've ranked the states for you. And since we happen to be in Texas, I've highlighted Texas. So Texas is number 2 for Mexican population. Okay, for Puerto Rican, it's Florida, New York, New Jersey. Salvador, Texas is number 2, a lot in the Houston area. Cuban, surprising to a lot of people, Texas is number 2 in the country for Cuban population after Florida, which may surprise you. Dominican, New York, New Jersey, Florida. Guatemalan, California, Florida, New York. Colombian, Florida, New York, New Jersey. Honduran, Texas is now number 1. So a lot of granularity, a lot of differences in the products and services. This is important information. Next. Okay, now, more eye charts, but this is critical, and we can do this. If anybody's interested, just get in touch with me. We can do this for your states, we can do this for your cities, we even do it for locations. We built a tool for Bacardi where we took every single liquor store in the country, every grocery store and liquor store that sells liquor, and we gave them a demographic profile of that, and then built an interactive tool so everybody who works for Bacardi can say, okay, I have a Diwali program for Grey Goose. What are the best Indian stores in America that I should go to? Boom, there it is, pops up. So, we can work with you if you're interested in your franchise locations and who the customers should be. But this is really interesting. Remember I talked about Pennsylvania a few minutes ago? Pennsylvania was the number 2 highest growth Latino population last year. Okay, if you look at this is the percentage of each state that is Latino. So number 1 is New Mexico at 50%. Number 2 are California and Texas. Okay, and of that, 84% of Texas is Mexican Latino. 82% of California. But look at the other regions. So Mexican, Caribbean, Central American, South American, Spaniard, and then other. Look at Pennsylvania that we just talked about. 64% Caribbean. Isn't that interesting? I'm going to turn up the microscope in a minute. Ricardo, you're back. I'd go to Philadelphia and recruit for people that want to own franchises in Puerto Rico. All right, next slide. Turning up the microscope a bit, we can do all countries. And some of you are in commercial real estate, and there are softwares that will typically do Mexican, Cuban, Dominican. We have custom scripted and could go down all the way to every country that's Hispanic. So if you sell a Pisco and you want to know Peruvians, it's very easy to do. That can be mapped and graphed. So you can look at the individual countries. Let's look at Pennsylvania just for funsies. Would anybody in this room have guessed that the highest percentage of Latinos in the country for Puerto Ricans would be Pennsylvania at 47%? 47%. So again, knowledge is power. We like to tell people don't fly blind. Get granular. Next. Okay, wow, this gets tough. But this is we did a project for Molson Coors because they wanted to market their beer brands, where people were in the right places. So we took every metro area in the state of Texas, every city that had over a 21,000 population, and we did all the demographics by country of origin. And it makes a difference. Makes a difference. If you're selling a beer from Colombia, it might be smart to go to that city or that store that has that population. And that's the granularity of this market, where we should get much deeper than just talking about things in general. Next. Okay, now let's shift gears a minute, not just talk about population. Let's talk about where the money is. Who's got the money to spend? Okay, so we'll start by looking at buying power. And there's going to be two different figures that you'll hear today. Is Anna Valdez here yet? Okay, Anna represents the Latino Donor Cooperative. And I think many of you have heard Anna speak, and you've seen her reports. What they measure is called purchasing power. Okay, what CELIC, another company, does, and has done since 1971, is spending power. So that's the amount of money that people have for consumer expenditures. Okay, so we're going to start with that, and then we're going to turn up the microscope, or broaden the microscope, and go to buying power, which is a different number, or purchasing power. So starting with spending power, what you have in your pocket to spend. California is number one for Hispanics at $530 billion, followed by Texas, 396, Florida, New York, on down the line from there, okay? And then you can also see the different race ethnicities as well. Next. Okay, this is percentage change in Hispanic buying power, which is consumer expenditures, what I have in my pocket to spend on things. Fastest growing states, North Dakota, South Dakota, et cetera, et cetera. Pennsylvania is up there too. We keep seeing Pennsylvania, which is very interesting. Okay, next. So if we look at just this buying power, which is in my pocket spending power, and we look at the growth since 2000 of Latinos, the green number on each period is the growth in that period for Latinos versus non. What we've seen since 2000 is a 293% increase in Latino buying power versus 125% increase for non-Hispanics. So more than twice, okay, 2.5 times. So who should we be catering to? Who's buying from us? Who should be owning our businesses and our franchises? Next. Okay, now this is the number that Anna will show you this afternoon. This is gross domestic product for Latinos.